I bring my mic up and look at that, I'm back. Okay, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we talk about a recent piece of nerdy entertainment. And we look at it in depth. So we look at what's good about it, what's bad about it. We look at what worked, what didn't work. We'll get into, if there's any such thing, deeper messages, tones, theme, and so on. And that means we will be spoiling this piece of nerdy entertainment. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the recent HBO Max sci-fi rom-com Moonshot. And I know the topic of what we're talking about. I just got distracted by something on my screen. So Moonshot. So if you have not seen it and you do hate spoilers, then you should probably wait until after you've seen it before you watch the show. If you have seen it and or you do not care about spoilers, then feel free to hang around. Let us know in the chat what you think about the movie if you've seen it, what you think about our opinion of it, what you think about any of the people involved, and so on. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, a first-person shooter on Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter, similar name, maybe identical name, anyway. And also in a bunch of different other social media things that are out there. So again, full fat spoiler chat. If you don't want to have the movie Moonshot spoiled for you, this is Moonshot, not Moonfall. Moonfall is not a sci-fi rom-com. It is a sci-fi action-adventure disaster movie, I guess. So this is Moonshot. So, before we start talking about Moonshot, we're going to talk a little bit, for just a few seconds, about Twitch. You might be watching this on Twitch. If you are, hi, how you doing? If not, you have a Twitch account, we'd love you to go check out that URL, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber, and consider following us there. We do live stream all of these shows on Twitch in addition to Facebook Live and YouTube, which is where you can find all of them. And take a quick look. We don't have anybody in the Twitch chat just yet. All right. So, what is Moonshot? Like I said, it's a romantic comedy in a science fiction setting set in the year 2049. And it's the story of two college students, Walt, who's played by Cole Sprouse, who you probably know as, if you watch this, Jughead from Riverdale, the CW series about Archie. And Sophie, who's played by Lana Condor, who I didn't recognize because it's been quite a while ago, but was Jubilee in X-Men Age of Apocalypse. And also was Saya Kuriki in the adaptation Deadly Class, which was adapted from I believe it was an Image comic series. So no stranger to nerd content. Also Koyami in Alita Battle Angel. So those two are these two here, and obviously the two that are in the teaser image, Sophie and Walt. The story is Walt has been obsessed with the idea of going to Mars for pretty much his whole life. And at this point in 2049, there is an established Mars colony, and it's relatively easy to get back and forth. It's a 35-day trip out to Mars. How they accomplish that, I have no idea, but science is not the strong suit of this movie. He meets a woman, also a college student, Ginny, at a party, who is leaving the next day for Mars. And they hit it off really well. So he kind of obsesses over her, and there's another reason for him to want to get Mars. He encounters Sophie at the same party and just is, it's one of those meet cute that goes just terribly, terribly wrong. And that's kind of Walt's life. He is, clumsy and bumbling and not too bright. And they don't hit it off at all. But she is going to, or is considering going to Mars because her boyfriend is living there now with his family. Um, and she's a super genius. He's her boyfriend, who is played by Mason Gooding, the blue shirt there, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son. And these people around here. This is Calvin is his name. This is Calvin's family, who took Sophie in when her parents died when she was 14. Anyway, circumstances conspire that she winds up deciding that she is going to go to Mars. Their family is apparently incredibly rich. She just buys a ticket. And I'll give them this. If you don't get selected for one of the yearly, I guess, lotteries, you can buy a ticket for just under $1 million. So, they've got that part pretty accurate, I would guess. So she buys a ticket, and Walt decides he's going to sneak on board in the fashion that his idol, the guy he idolizes, Leon Covey, head of Covey Industries, who runs now all of the space flights and everything else, a very not subtle take on Elon Musk, who hid into one of the early missions to colonize Mars. And so he decides to emulate him and do that, and he winds up hiding out and getting snuck on board, sort of. He sneaks himself on board. The first person he runs into is, of course, Sophie, and she realizes that if she gets caught with him, she's probably going to be sent back to Earth. So she takes it upon herself to help him out in hiding out, creating a fake identity, etc. So, pardon me, my allergies. It was a nice day today, so I had all the windows and doors open. So, of course, my allergies are just really kicking in. And that's pretty much it. They get to Mars. There's hijinks and shenanigans on the way to Mars, but basically it's because these two are forced together. He doesn't have a cabin of his own, so he winds up living in her cabin for 35 days. Plus, they wind up developing feelings for each other, which very much complicates things with her relationship with Calvin, his not really relationship with Ginny, and it's a romantic comedy, and so you can kind of see where this is all going to go. So, what did I like about it? So the performances of at least the leads are pretty good. Let's get back to that shot of Sophie and Walt. Cole Sprouse is really funny. He does his bit really well, plays the sort of put upon, but always mostly chipper, bumbling buffoon Walt really well. I haven't watched the Riverdale aside from the first 3 or 4 episodes, so I really don't know much about his portrayal of Jughead. But I think he's pretty good in this. In fact, I think he's quite good in this. Lana Condor as Sophie is good. She's okay. I wouldn't say that her performance stands out. But when they need to be more serious in the sort of romantic aspect of the romantic comedy, she does a credible job. The dialogue surprisingly has some really smart and touching moments. And I'll get into some of the other aspects of the dialogue later on. But it comes out of left field because it doesn't happen that often. But when it does, you're kind of like, oh, wow, that was really smartly written and well done. I like the fact that they're college students and they don't shy away from the portraying the potential confusion of and frustration of two college students stuck in a cabin together and the more adult situations that might arise from that. It is not an R-rated movie. So, when I say more adult situations, they reference that stuff, but it's not, it's not portrayed in any particularly blunt or adult way. I mean, this is a PG-13 movie. But when they do it actually reasonably well. I don't really have any photos of this, which is, unfortunately, I couldn't find a decent high enough res. I guess we'll do this one here when they're out on a spacewalk. Sophie is deathly afraid of flying in planes and carries that over into flying in rockets. But eventually Walt convinces her to go out on a spacewalk, which is one of the things you can do on the cruise ship isn't the right word. Essentially the tug, the thing that carries them from Earth orbit to Mars orbit. The special effects, the visual special effects, are actually decent for a movie of this nature. And it turns out they're done by DNEG, which is credited in, is well credited in the credits as Double Negative, which is their old name. They have been called that since 2014, I think. Double Negative has won 7 Academy Awards and Emmys and BAFTAs and you name it. Inception, Interstellar, Blade Runner 2049, Dune, on TV, season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, Chernobyl. They are a powerhouse among visual effects studios. And this stuff isn't like their best work, or because they obviously had this movie's budget to work with. And they do a creditable job with that movie's budget. Let's see, what else did I particularly care for it? The music is neutral to me. It's very sort of indie, folky, I don't know, somebody's 2021 Spotify list. Let's put it that way. Some of the songs are good, and there are some classics. They threw in a few things, but it's mostly an awful lot of, somebody thinks this is going to be the next big, indie or folky or whatever hit. And with it, so, it does a creditable job. It does an okay job conveying some of the emotional aspects or impacts of the scenes, but yeah, it's mostly forgettable. And honestly, I gotta say that's pretty much it as far as, the things I like. Other performances are pretty solid. Again, Mason Gooding is really good. Emily Rudd as Ginny. Emily Rudd will be our Nami in the upcoming One Piece live action series. Is good for the little you see of her. The standout for me is Zach Braff, who isn't in it nearly enough, but he plays Leon Covey, their Elon Musk. And he's really good. Is Zach Braff, of course. Cole Sprouse is good in this, and then Zach Braff appears and you go, oh, comedy actor. So that's pretty much it as far as things that I like about it. Things that I didn't like is sadly a bigger list. While I said I like the visual effects, and I do, the other aspects of production, these are the costumes. This is the costume, the epaulets there. This is the costume of the captain of the ship that's carrying them from Earth orbit to Mars orbit. This is the jumpsuit that Sophie is wearing that most of the people wear, and for some reason that's also the jumpsuit that the crew wears. So who thought that was a smart idea? The ship designs, the interiors look, that's 1966 or 68, I guess, Star Trek. There's no complexity whatsoever to any of this stuff. This is Leon Covey's office in on Mars. It's boring, is what it is. The costume design is boring. The production design is boring. The set design is boring. I looked at who the set designer was, and this person has credits that are amazing. Avengers Endgame. Just some fantastic, fantastic movies that they were the set designer on. And so once again, I've got to assume this is budget. You do what you have with the budget that you're given, and nobody tried to push you to do anything better or special. So it's kind of really boring to look at. A lot of it doesn't make sense from a production design. So early on, and I thought this was the direction they were going to go, they set it up as being essentially, this is Elon Musk's future. Even to the extent that the rocket that launches off of Earth to go up to catch the ship in orbit is Starship. It's a slightly modified but it's Starship. There's no question. It's SpaceX's Starship. Now, and so that and other references to how Earth is being ruined by all the people on Earth and so on, and yet the first setup before they actually wind up getting on the rocket ship takes place in and around the college that they're both students at, and aside from occasional references to like overflowing trash cans, it's gorgeous. There is no indication whatsoever. Nobody's wearing, masks to cover up pollution. None of that. It is, it might as well be a scene from the OC, or some other 90s, California set series. It just looks clean, and the air looks clean, and everybody keeps saying about humanity is ruining the world, and I keep looking around going, where? Why would you want to leave this planet? So that some of that just really doesn't make sense. Now, and later on, when we meet Leon Covey and so on, it looks like they actually start making fun of Elon's decisions, or his vision for the future. Like at one point, Leon asks him, why do you think I came to Mars, Walt? And Walt says, taxes. And he says, no, I'm a billionaire. I don't pay taxes. And then later on, when he's explaining his vision for doing what he was doing here, he basically says, yes, I could have used all of my wealth to end poverty and hunger on Earth, but this is more of a way to inspire the people back on Earth to do it themselves. And it's clearly pure bullshit. And I'm like, yeah, just put it right to Elon. Do it. I'm 100% for space. I am a space nut. Please, let's get colonies out there and let's do all of the things we need to do. But come on, Elon. However much of the 44 billion you're putting in to buy Twitter, we'll say it's 7 billion. I'm pretty sure that 7 billion could solve homelessness in the United States. Or if you got 2 or 3 of your other, multi-billionaire buddies to pony up the same amount, 21 or 28 billion could absolutely 100% do it. So, yeah. I wish that was where they go with this, and ultimately they don't. They just leave that criticism hanging as well. It's still, Mars is pretty much the cool place to be, and everybody kind of wants to go there. And this isn't a science fiction movie, so I'm not going to criticize an awful lot of the stuff. There's absolutely no indication that the lower gravity on Mars does anything to anybody, and it's, you know, it's just, it's Earth, except more orange. So, um, I anyway, the writing, aside from those moments of kind of really sharp romantic comedy stuff, like there's a couple of lines of dialogue that could have been in The Big Sick, Kumail Nanjiani's movie, and that was a super smart, incredibly well written, really character driven movie. And there are a couple of lines in here you go, wow, that's way above the rest of this stuff, and then you get this whole trip out, the middle section of this movie where they're heading out to Mars on the spaceship, is just awful. The captain's dialogue is terrible. They have a wonderful sort of concept that two of the crew members are a lesbian couple, but they're both deeply afraid of any sort of commitment. So they've been together for, I think they said something like 14 years or something like that, and they're not engaged. That's kind of funny. And kudos to them for, just having a wonderful lesbian couple as part of the crew with like zero commentary around it whatsoever, other than playing it for the fact that, they are both really commitment phobic. And it just, that whole segment is dumb. Now, they almost fix it. Because when he sneaks onto the spaceship from while he's on Earth, and he gets onto the rocket that's going up to the spaceship that's going to take him to Mars, you look at it and go, all right, this is 2049, and they've forgotten about security cameras? Or, what's the deal here? And as it turns out, you find out that Leon has been watching him all along because he's applied 37 times. I guess they have to do it more than once a year. Otherwise, he couldn't apply 37 times because he's in college. But that caught his attention, so he's been following, this kid. And then when he realized he was going to be sneaking on board, Leon basically just told all the security people, ignore him. If he dies in, he gets put into an escape pod that gets sent up to be attached to the bigger ship. Is that if he dies in the escape pod, that's going to be a problem, but we'll deal with that later on. And I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. And even to the extent of, sort of guiding Sophie to be the one who discovers him. And then the captain basically telling him that, of course you knew he was a stowaway, that his ID was fake, that the whole thing was fake. And then she says at one point, it's like, I've got an IQ of 168, and they let me pilot a $4 billion spaceship. Of course I knew you were hiding. And like, oh, okay. So they smartly explained away that really terrible aspect of both him getting up there and, to some extent, the captain's way of dealing with him. But it's still stupid. An awful lot of what the captain does has nothing to do with him, in the way she interacts with him, has nothing to do with, treating him differently because she knows he's a stowaway that Leon wants to get to Mars. It's just dumb. So I really wished it was better because the performances are pretty good. Now, the other thing that really doesn't work for me in this is, unfortunately, Cole Sprouse and Lana Condor have zero chemistry. She's charming. He's charming in his bumbling sort of way. She's charming in her neurotic genius sort of way, which they do fairly well without making it sort of stereotypical. But when as they grow to closer and closer together, and you eventually kind of go, yeah, no, I don't. They kiss, and you have nope, just that's a movie kiss. There's nothing there, and they're not good enough actors to really sell that there's something there. So it's unfortunate, because that's kind of what a rom-com really needs to hang on, is that you believe that these two people are romantic. And it just doesn't work. The ending is trite, and kind of violates the rules that they set up for how this whole space travel thing works in this story in the first place. But at that point, it's not a science, like I said, science fiction. It's a romantic comedy that happens to be set in a story that they think can take place, on Earth, to Mars, and then on Mars. If there's anything else that I particularly did not care for in this, that's pretty much it. I got to say, the production value of the set design and the costume design is a thing that really just got to me. It's not good, and I mean like 1960s television, not good. You don't need a ton of money to go out to a junkyard and buy a lot of cabling and glue it to the walls like they did in Alien. Most of that stuff in those beautiful, incredibly detailed walls in the corridors in Alien is all junk. Maybe they didn't have the time. Maybe even that was too much for their budget. I don't know, but this is minimal effort. It's clean looking, but it's minimal effort. So, is there any sort of larger theme to this? No. They do bring up some of the things, like Sophie, when Walt lies that he's had a relationship with Ginny since they were, their first year in college. And he's about to graduate, so he's in his last year. And when Sophie finds out that he's been lying, she rightly calls him out. So you snuck onto a spaceship to follow a girl that you met the night before she left to go to Mars. And without saying the word, she basically says, so you're a stalker. And she's right. His character is a stalker. Ivan, welcome to the chat in Facebook. Ivan says, at least this gives hope to people like me who consistently put in minimal effort all the time. Well, there you go. If you want a job out in Hollywood as a set designer, apparently there are places where you can get that work, while putting in minimal effort. So, you would think that it was with the more sort of aware and socially conscious story elements of something like the lesbian couple, that they would also address the fact that Walt is a stalker who basically puts Sophie's life in danger, or at very least her freedom, get arrested and sent back to Earth in danger, to follow a woman that he had one nice night with. Walt is a horrible person. He's a charming person, and part of the problem is he doesn't grow at all. So there's no, you could say a lot of movies that we review, it's kind of fairly consistent, is that one of the themes is growth, or growing awareness of yourself. Walt gets a little bit of that towards the end, and as does Sophie, but not much. He hasn't changed as a person, and the person he was somebody who was willing to essentially blackmail, with threatening to have her arrested if she doesn't, hide him, or give her up, assuming she'd be arrested, into helping him stalk a woman across, millions of miles of space. So yeah, it's not as bad as I can't think of the movie, Chris Pratt's character, The movie he did. Yeah, can't. It's not coming up. Also a science fiction romance action, except it's not romance. It's absolutely hideous, horrible behavior on his part. Walt isn't that bad. Walt is not a good guy, or at least his behavior is very bad. So, yeah, there's no message to take away from here other than, I guess, follow your dreams, even if they're going to get somebody else in trouble. Not a great message, folks. So anyway, it's not worth your time. So I guess that's the wrap up here. Is it worth your time? Do I recommend it? No, don't bother. There are better romantic comedies. There are better science fiction movies, and I'm sure there are better science fiction rom-coms out there. Can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure they're out there. Yeah, just it's not worth the time. It's only an hour and 44 minutes, but still, and it doesn't lag. I'll give it that. I mean, it's not super slow. It's just not that interesting. Where would I put it on a scale of 1 to 10? It is a 4. Now, if I was being generous because of Zach Braff's performance and Cole Sprouse, I might bump it up to a 5. But if Walt was a better character and less of a, what a wonderful, cheerful, bumbling kind of, he's a horrible person who manipulates people to do, interplanetary stalking. If he was a better character, it might bump up to 5. But yeah, I'm going to go 4 out of 10. Don't bother. It's not worth it. And that's it, folks. That's sadly Moonshot. So as I said, will it lift your heart into orbit? No. Nope. Ain't going to happen. You're not going to like it. What have we got coming up? So like I said, not sure what we're doing with Anime Octane on Monday, but I'll let you guys know. Obviously prior to the event. And of course, Nerd Week Lives, very interesting stuff dropped even today. There's posted a lot of stuff. For our Nerd News show, Nerd Week Live next Tuesday. And next Thursday, our Full Fat Spoiler Chat is Our Flag Means Death. So get your pirates on next Thursday. Now, having said that, we'll give our last promo here before we go into where we'll be at cons and such. Please do check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/nerdcaliber. We'd love to have you as a patron. We just have 3 tiers, $2 for the smallest tier. We use that money to help us get to cons now that cons are coming back. And I will be going to cons, even though I did my big screed last Tuesday, or this Tuesday, about wearing masks. I'm going to continue to wear masks. I suggest everybody does. But I also want to go to cons and get photos. And we want to get videos. So that's what we use the Patreon money for, is to get to more cons now that cons are coming back. And speaking of cons, May 27th through the 29th, I will be running the photo department at Anime Boston. So all of the people running around with their cameras and, in the staff shirts, taking photos at panels and so on, they're all working for me. I will be pretty much all the time in the cosplay studio suite, the cosplay photography studio suite. That's room 102. It's on the main floor. If you come down the long hallway from the Prudential, you go around the rotunda to the left, turn left into that hallway, and it's that very first room right there, facing the windows. We will also have a table in Community Row. I've been saying that we wouldn't for months, but we're going to, because it's going to be where our press team has its base. So if you do see us in Community Row, they'll tell you where to get your cosplay photos, which will be in room 102, but that's also where the video work will be done. So we'll be doing our question of the day interviews and other fun things. So check us out there. Come in and get your free photos at room 102. Those will be going up on Nerd Caliber and Anime Boston. So it's part of the deal that we have to have me run it. And we'll see you then, hopefully, if you're going to that show. If not, we'll see you at another show coming up. I believe PortCon, Maine is coming up in the third weekend of June. So ideally, we'll see some people up there. And with that said, stay safe, folks. Please do wear a mask if you're going to any event indoors. It's just smart and it's safe. And, people are getting COVID left and right. My Facebook feed, it just gets loaded up every day with more people in my friends group catching COVID. So put it off as long as you can. Wear the mask. And with that said, we will see you at an upcoming show or